Hello everyone, this is James from EOTPRO. I've been getting some requests lately about how do I access the functions that EOTPRO provides and how do I know which output each of those means or what each output means, and also how do I build custom alerts and things like that. So this is just a short introduction in how to program your own alerts or your own indicators or your own strategies, whatever you want to have customized for yourself. So the two best tools for that are Ninja provides a custom strategy wizard and a custom strategy indicator. The custom strategy indicator really isn't that robust. It's more of a quick template to create a starting indicator from. You can't do much with the wizard. You actually have to manually code everything. So we'll start with a custom strategy indicator just to show you how to solve the first question, which is what do each of the outputs mean. So the first thing we want to do is start a new strategy. And the reason that we'll start a new strategy or a custom strategy is because it will show us what the outputs of each indicator are. So we'll start with doing that. Well, let me show you how to get there. We go to File or Tools, New NinjaScript Strategy. We get this little window that pops up. We'll just say next. The name. Well, the name, we're just using this to output variables. So we'll just call it that real quick so that we kind of know what all the available outputs are. Let's see, description, that's not too important. Calculate on bar close. Make sure that this checkbox is always checked. Alright, we'll just hit next. Inputs, we really don't need to worry about that now. If you want to have your own inputs, that's fine. And what do I mean by inputs? Well, if we go to any indicators here, let's say for example we'll see what the outputs of the EOT cycle MA are. Well, if we look here, we have two available inputs. One's length 1, one's length 2. We can manually define these within our strategy here, but the problem is that it won't be adjustable. So if we want to have those variables accessible, kind of like what we're using right now, then we can just add those inputs right here. So we have length 1, length 2, we'll define those. So we'll say length 1 and length 2. Okay, those are both integers. Bool means true or false input. Double means any input that can have a decimal that isn't a whole number. Integer just means a whole number, and string is basically words or text. Okay, since lengths are whole numbers, we'll make sure those are on int. Default, that just means what it is whenever we start up. So I think it was 21 and 3 or 3 and 21 here. We'll double check. Yeah, 3 and 21. Okay, minimum and description. Pretty straightforward. Okay, we'll hit next now down here. When the following conditions are true. This section is to kind of define conditions and outputs. We'll use this later for when we want to create custom alerts. So we'll define the condition for the alert and then do the following. Well, right now we're just trying to figure out how do we define the condition. So we'll add a new condition using add on the right here. And we want to use EOT cycle MA. So we'll click on that, and then we'll go down into the parameters here, and one of the parameters is named plot. Now, this is what we're trying to get at. The plot is telling you what are all the available outputs for cycle MA. So we have quite a few outputs here, about 10, and obviously we're not sure what each of them does. And so I'll show you kind of a quick way to check that and be able to check against our code and everything else. If something says plot, that's not a good output to use. Usually those are outputs just to plot the lines or the indicators onto the chart. Those aren't always usable data. So the more useful data will usually either start with EOT, kind of like EOT underscore bar sense change, or anything that says color, position, slope, things like that. So right now we'll write these down. So I'm just writing down the available outputs that I want to check and see what they do. So we have cycle MA color, cycle MA position, cycle MA slope, and EOT underscore bar sense change. So now that we have all of our available outputs here, we can go back to our custom indicator. I'm gonna go ahead and just define this condition, and then we'll just add something to the right. This isn't too important what we set it at now. I just want to be able to get the code so that we can make a custom indicator and see what each of those plots does. So I guess what we could do is just set the plot to what we want to look at, which was cycle MA color. We'll say OK. We'll add another EOT CMA. And then the other plot we want to look at is position. And anything on the right's fine. Okay, and then the last one was EOT cycle MA. And then the last one we wanted was the slope. Okay, great. So we'll just add anything over here, it doesn't matter. Okay, now that we've added these conditions, it'll be posted in our code. Let's go ahead and scroll down until you see these outputs. And what these do is just kind of generate a little code snippet that you can use to get the values and see what the outputs are and plot them on your chart or anything else. This might be about a little more confusing than most of the things we're doing, but if you could just follow along, that'd be great. So we'll go to, now that we have our outputs and we have a kind of code snippet that we can use to use the outputs, we'll create our indicator so that we could plot these outputs. So we'll go to File, New Indicator. So we'll call this one Cycle MA Outputs. Description not too important. Overlay on price. That just basically means, do you want the indicator to be on top of price, kind of like all those averages or the cycle MA, or do you want it in its own sub panel below? Usually if we're doing just output checking, don't overlay it on price. Okay, we'll say next. Inputs, again, if you want to add the inputs, you can, length 1. I haven't really explained how to link those inputs yet. Maybe I'll show that in a minute. Okay, the plots. So we want 3 plots since, well, we'll stick with 1 plot for now just to make it simple. And we'll actually call this cycle MA color. We'll call it cycle MA outputs cycle MA color. So we know that this is outputting the cycle MA color plots. Outputs. Color. Okay. We'll go forward. Yeah, just 1 plot. We'll have it as a let's do a bar. Say next. Oscillator lines, don't worry about those. And then we can just say finish. Okay, so now that we have our indicator, right now, plot 0.set simply means we're plotting the close of the current bar. Obviously we don't want to plot the close of the current bar, we want to plot EOT cycle MA color. So I'll just copy that and replace the close of 0 here. There we go. Now I can hit this button up here that says compile. And then when we go to our chart, we add our new indicator cycle MA outputs color. If you didn't compile it, you won't see it on the list and it won't update. So it's very important that you hit that compile button each time that you reload. And then we'll also put on a cycle MA so we have something to reference it to. Okay, good. So now we can see what these outputs are. So it's outputting these values. It looks like it's +3 to -3, and the values are corresponding to the color. So right here, you probably can't see too well. Maybe I can zoom in a little, make this more obvious. Let me make this line really, yeah. I'll make this line thick for you guys so that you can see a little better on your screens. I'll make it huge. There we go. Okay, so as we go across, we can see we have the cycle MA is red here, dark red, and it's outputting -3. So if you have a -3, that means that the output's dark red, this or the most negative red. This darker auburn red is more of a -2, and magenta looks like it's about 1 on the scale here. Green looks like it's 2 or 3. And we could just go across and kind of see what the outputs are. And maybe I don't want to see the cycle MA color. Maybe we'll want to look at this output. What does this do? The cycle MA slope. Okay, so we'll compile this. And then we will reload our indicator here. And now we can see that the outputs are different. This time it's the slope of the line. So we can see it's outputting negative numbers here because the slope is negative, and then as the slope increases in the negative direction, the negative slope corresponds with the output. And that's kind of how you can check what each output is and see, what those values mean and things like that. So now that we know what our outputs do, we can go back to our custom strategy, and I'll show you how to do alerts. So I'm going to create a new strategy called, we'll call this one my cycle MA alerts. So I'll show you how to create new alerts using this. I'll hit next. Our input, so I'll show you now how to do the input. So we want the length as an input. Length 1, we want length 2 as an input, and we'll also want the alert path. So that'll be how we set up where that alert file is. So length 1, we will set that as an integer because that's a whole number. Length 2 is a whole number, so we'll set that as an integer. Alert path, that's not a number, that's actually a word or a string or a group of words, so we just simply put that as string because it means text. Default for length 1 was 21, I believe, and 3, or it's the other way around, 3 and 21. Yeah, 3 and 21. Just have those reversed here. Okay. So I'll put these back, 3, 21, and the alert path. Our default, we'll do something like C slash. Well, actually, let me show you. The best way to do that is if we have an alert file. Let me go ahead and bring up an alert file to kind of show you. the easiest way to do that also, since we're doing alerts here. I'm just finding a sound file right now. So I have this this sound file here up at the top right. I just put it on the desktop. To get the alert path, right click on your file that you want to use, go to properties, and then there's a location here. So we'll just copy and paste this location. See users James desktop, say OK, and then we'll put that in the alert path. And then we'll also need to add the file name. So we'll add the slash, and the file name is 6a.wav. Make sure that your capitalization is correct when you type in the file name, and that you have the extension, whether that's a .wav or any other type file. So we have the location of the file and the exact file name here. So then we can go ahead and put next. Okay, when the following conditions are true. This is where we want to add our conditions for our alert. So let's say that we want to use a cycle MA for alert, and so we'll go to cycle MA. We'll see our inputs in the bottom here. Input series, you can always leave that as default input. Length 1. We don't want to use 3 anymore because we custom defined that length, so we'll click on this this little box here, and then we'll scroll down till we find user defined inputs, and we'll link that to length 1. So all that, what I did there was I linked the inputs that we made a couple screens ago to the parameters of the indicator, and we'll do the same for length 2 here. We want to link that to what we defined as our inputs, which is length 2, and our plot, we want to set that to our output. So we're going to use the color as our output, meaning that maybe we want the alert to show when the cycle MA turns bright red. And from before and looking at the plots, we remember that it turns bright red when the cycle MA color is equal to -3. So we'll just do that. So we'll say cycle MA color is equal to go to the miscellaneous numerical value and set that to -3. So every time the cycle MA becomes -3, we want to play our alert. Great. And then maybe we'll add another one when the EOT cycle MA is equal to +3. So again, we select EOT cycle MA from the list, we go to length 1, we link our inputs here, length 2, and our plot was the cycle MA color, and then when that equals +3. Okay. Now I kind of made a mistake here in the fact that both of these conditions need to be true, and obviously cycle MA color will never be equal to -3 and +3 at the same time. So I actually should have created that on set number 2, so we'll do that in a minute. So I just deleted the first one out. And then what do we want to do when the following conditions are true? We'll go to add and have a new kind of thing to do. We want an alert, or sorry, play sound. And the file name will be, oh, that's interesting. We can select it this way. So I guess we don't need that input. We'll just select our alert. Let me see. Or I guess there's two ways to do it. One, you can select which alert you want to use directly, or if you want that adjustable within the inputs, you'll have to go to alert and sound location. We'll link to again, it's the same thing. That's interesting. I'm surprised that they don't allow you to add a custom location. So we'll just do play sound then, and we set it to our sound file there. So we'll hit, normally I would go into set 2 and do what I just did again, only when the cycle MA color is equal to -3. Oh, and let me do another thing. Not only will we play a sound, we'll also draw a vertical line on our chart so that we know when alert should be sounded, and we can go back and check. And just an easy way to see that our conditions are what we want it as. So I'll just go to add here on the right, and we'll add a new vertical line. And color will be blue. Don't need to do much other than that. Okay, we'll say next. Stop loss and profit targets. We're not using the strategy to trade, so we're not going to enter any money management or anything. Any entries, any exits, because we're just using this to play alerts. And we'll say finish here. So we've just created our strategy. So we'll go to strategies, and we'll add our end of trend alerts. Is that correct? Or I think that's something I did before. Here it is, my cycle MA alerts. We'll click new. And then make sure that when we put in our chart, we set this to enabled to true. We'll say OK. And there we go. Every time that the value is -3, then we are playing our alerts. Well, as you can see, we're kind of realizing that something's going to happen that we might have not wanted to do, where every single bar that is -3, our alerts are going to be sounding off. So, you know, that might get annoying or cumbersome. So maybe we want our logic a little different. Maybe instead of saying when the current bar is -3, because that can happen quite a few times in a row, we want to say if the current bar, the last bar was not -3, but this bar happens to be -3. It's almost like a crossing over that you can set, or rising, falling. So that's kind of an important conditional that we'll add so that we don't get an alert every bar. So I'll go back into edit our my cycle MA alerts, and we'll go to next. We'll just go through back to our conditions. So we'll add one more condition here. So not only does the EOT cycle MA need to equal 3, but we want it so that the last bar was not equal to 3, or -3. I'll show you how to do that here. So we'll go to, we'll add a new condition. Sorry, I keep skipping ahead here. So we'll add a new condition, click add. And this time, again, we'll use the same indicator, EOT cycle MA. Don't forget to set everything up again. So we'll set our length to 1 and our length 2 to length 2. That way we have those available inputs, and our and our plot needs to be set to cycle MA color. And lastly, this, I forgot to mention this, the plot on the chart, this is very useful. We always want to say true here, because what that means is it will plot the cycle MA on our chart for us, so we don't need to add the indicator separately. It'll show us the exact indicator that we're using and referencing. Always set this to true. That's very important. Okay. So our condition here is that the cycle MA, now we want, this is an important one here also, bars ago. Normally we always set it to 0 bars ago, meaning the current bar. But this time our condition is that the last bar was not equal to -3. So we'll set bars ago to 1, meaning the last bar. And then we'll set, instead of equal, this exclamation mark equal means not equal to. So we'll set that to, again, a numerical value of -3. So our two conditions here are the EOT cycle MA length 1, or the EOT cycle MA color of the current bar, that's what the 0 means, is equal to -3, and the cycle MA of the last bar, that's what the 1 here means, is not equal to -3. And that will change our code how we want it. So we'll hit compile here. That way we can work while we're using the strategy analyst, and then I'll reload our Ninja script. And I'll show you that the strategy went ahead and added its own EOT cycle MA. So I took the one that we're using before off the chart, and it adds it on for you. That way we're using the correct indicator. So, as you can see now, the only time that we get this arrow, or I mean the vertical line and our alert, is when the bar before was not equal to red, but the current bar is. And that's how you do your basic alerts. If you want to hang on and stick around, I can do one more. I had a request today to do, let me go check. It said he wants an EOT SECS alert if the price proxy is at the highest or the lowest value. Basically it's going to be the same, so I'll finish this one and we'll create a new one just to go over everything again real quick. So new strategy. Okay, we'll say next. We'll call this one server or my. That way all your indicators are grouped together in the my section. We'll call this one server EOT SECS alerts. Okay, description. Don't need that. Calculate on bar close. Always have that checked. Inputs. The server EOT SECS has some inputs that are a little more complicated. We'll just have to leave those as default. And so we'll say next to those. I'm not going to have any inputs for this indicator. We want to set our conditions, so we'll add a new condition. We'll go to server EOT SECS. Okay, bar input 0 auto. The plot. Again, don't use these plot ones that look confusing. Always use something else. They'll tend to be at the bottom of the list. We'll use direction. I know already what the direction is used for, or I mean what the outputs are, and that's the one that we'll be wanting to use today. It's just like the cycle MA color where it outputs between -4 and +4 depending on what the current color of the SECS is. If you want to check that again, you know, you could reference the start of this video and see how to do that. I'll just keep going down. Bars ago is 0. Offset type ticks, that's fine. Plot on the chart, true. We always want that. And then we'll set that when it equals a numerical value of 4, +4. So when the current SECS is equal to 4 on the current bar, and let's not forget that we want to add the condition that says that the last bar is not equal to 4. So we'll say bars ago, let's just go through everything again, no inputs. Bars ago 1, we'll again plot this one too. And that should not equal 4. Okay, so again we have server EOT SECS of 0. You see the 0 right there. That means the current bar is equal to 4. And the server EOT SECS, the 1 right there, means that the last bar was not equal to 4. And then we'll add again a vertical line so that we can see what's going on. Maybe I'll change this one to red so we can differentiate between the CMA alerts and the SEC alerts here. And we'll also add our alert file. So we'll just say miscellaneous play sound. We'll have to select a file name here. Looks like NinjaTrader kind of has some for you if you want to use also. So I'll use alert 1. Okay, and then that's good. So this will only be the alert when the SECS turns the highest color. I think that's cyan. But maybe you want set 2, which also adds the lowest color. So we'll just do that real quick. Server bars to go 0, plot on the chart, yes. Okay. Instead of 4 this time, we're going to use -4. Then we'll add. Bars to go 1, because the last bar needs to not equal 4 or -4. Is that right? Yeah, -4 for this set, and then set 1 is +4, +4. Looks correct there. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do this correctly. I forgot to change the plot. Remember, always change the plot to the correct output. Should be direction. If you have any questions about the plot, feel free to email me, james@eotpro.com, and I will give you which outputs to use for whatever you're wanting to do also. So we'll add our alert, our play sound file, same thing. Make that alert 1, and we also want our vertical line here. Yeah, we're doing red this time. Okay, so we have our 2 conditions, pretty straightforward. Looks good. I'll compile it to test it. I'm going to remove these other indicators and strategies from my chart so that we can see what's going on a little better. So I'll remove that, and we'll remove that, and now we can add our strategy. It'll be under the strategies section. Okay, and it's called My Cycle MA Alerts, or My Server EOT SECS Alerts. So we'll say new, we'll set this to true. And sure enough, there we go. So when the SECS goes to the highest value, we get our red line here, and we'll know that it will play that sound file. So we can see we sure enough got the thick blue line here, and it played the sound on the next bar. Same with the thick red line here, played the sound. And we can continue back, and everything looks correct, and we're getting our alerts in the right spot. Again, if you have any questions, or more importantly, if you need some help with knowing what each output does, just feel free to email me, james@eotpro.com, or just submit a ticket on our website, and I will help you with what each output is and what the values are.